All right, guys and girls, everybody. So my name is John Brosnan, and thanks everybody for joining in. I'm just going to go through a quick presentation. I was one of the founders of a company called Netfort way back in 2002, and just over 2 years ago, then we got acquired. So I'm going to talk a bit about how we did it, and basically we did it through bootstrapping. I'm going to talk about that a bit and the advantages of that, and then talk about at the end of it when we got acquired. Just have a few slides in that as well, because I think it's kind of interesting. So that's the quick agenda. I suppose my own background is that I did electronics in UL, and then when I graduated, I got a job in digital equipment, which became Compaq and then became HP, and you all know HP very well. So I spent 10 years as an engineer in digital. Compaq was when I left, and worked with them in the States and then Reading. And as a graduate coming from college, up from Kerry, working in Galway in digital was great, because the company was flying at the time. It was doing very well. It had 130,000 people. It was the second biggest computer company in the world, and they looked after their staff very well. And the people I worked with as well, I worked with a lot of experienced engineers who, your first job, you pick up habits and stuff from them, and like what I learned from them and what they invested in us was great. And I suppose more importantly, I met a lot of good guys and girls there and people that I worked with. So I think as you go through life, maybe, and you know yourselves when you go to college or whatever, and hopefully we'll be back to the same stage as you, where you are living in a house with 6 or 7 people the first time after moving out of your home from Kerry or wherever. And that's one way you get to know people, when you live with somebody for a while. And the second way is when you work with somebody and you're in the office with somebody and you look at the people that really put it in and they really care about what they're doing, the smart people, and the people that if you ever wanted to do a startup, you want to do a startup with people that you trust and that you know, and that's how you get to know them. So it's a pity, over the last few years that people haven't been in the office together, because, I think maybe people are missing that, but it's definitely, a great way to get to know people that you want to do a startup with. But just getting back to bootstrapping, that's a book on the right there, which is definitely worth reading, by Gianforte, which is all about bootstrapping your business, which is what his mantra is basically. And it's basically that you try and do your own startup or your own company without raising a whole pile of money. You try and fund it through your own personal money. You might get some grants and investment, or you try and fund it through sales, which is easier said than done as well. So why do we do bootstrap? So when I left digital, I kind of my kind of area of software development was, I always kind of wanted to write software that was very close to the hardware. So I was writing device drivers in C, programming language. So and I found that very interesting when you were writing the code and you could see packets on the wire and stuff. I just liked doing that, but it was very specialized stuff. And this company came to Galway, they were hiring people, and they wanted people like me. And anyway, I was lucky enough to get a job there. It was a startup, an American startup called Aceta, and they raised $25 million. And this is when, through VCs, this is when money was pretty easily available during the boom. But they bumped through the money. The management in the company was really bad. I think the company ended up it got kind of acquired years ago for practically nothing. I'd say I don't know if we had any sales, but I spent 5 or 6 years there, and it was a great learning experience as well, because it's one of the things, I suppose, when you do work in a multinational, because everything is good, usually you're treated very well. It's kind of hard to leave, and to get out of that small pool and just do something different, because you get kind of comfortable, and it's kind of dangerous sometimes as well. It's good to move around. And I met some very good people in Aceta as well. But so when, at the end of that 5-year experience in that startup, or in that American funded startup, they were funded by a bunch of VCs from America. A course appeared in the Galway Advertiser, and it was like a mini MBA program for people who want to do their own startup. And it was funded by Enterprise Ireland and the college, NUIG. So they were looking for 8 people who wanted to do a startup, and I applied. I was still working away at the time, And the gig was, if you got it, you got a shared office space in the college at the back of the engineering building. You got a lot of mentorship from different people. It's like you get classes every Friday. You got, I think it was 35 or 40,000 euro for that year as well, to kind of compensate you for loss of earnings or whatever. And at the end of the year, the plan was that you'd have a little business plan, and if you did, made some progress, Enterprise Ireland would fund you. So I'll come to that in a second. So, and we decided we would try, and I got two other guys involved who I was working with, and said, cool, I want to do this, will you join me? And they said yes straight away. So we said we would try and see if we could sell anything really at the time, and we came up with an internet filtering product, a box for schools actually that filtered internet access by classroom, and we sold 300 of those at $3,000 a pop. And it was tough going on to schools, walking into a school with this box years ago, saying we can filter and control the internet by school. So, but we did it, and at the end of the year, Enterprise Ireland said they would fund us. But there are some of the reasons we wanted to do it, So could we kind of build up the valuation of the company and delay taking money from VCs as quickly as possible and keep more and more of the company for ourselves, the shares? That's what we're trying to do, to be honest. So, as I mentioned, all the people that were involved at the start, and there was maybe 3 or 4 people involved, core engineers that I had worked with before, and I'd worked with them all before. We were all techies, we were engineers, and we thought we could develop a product and sell it, and we could sell it locally. So, because we knew each other very well, and we kept hiring engineers that we knew over time, that was the easy bit. Like, it was our own, we were engineers, we knew good engineers, we knew, we had lots of contacts. But there's all the basic stuff like execution and all that stuff. And that book on the right, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, is a good book around the basics in running a company. Like this guy, Rockefeller, he's in the oil business, he used to have a stand-up meeting every morning with all his direct reports for 10 minutes. I said, guys, what happened yesterday? Any problems? What's the plan for today? And we did some of that. We were doing it 3 times a week, but we tried to execute. We tried to deliver, and it was a pretty good book at the time, to read and to dawn and to learn about how to run a company and how to try and scale the company as well. We gave anybody that joined the company and all the founders, obviously, I firmly believe that if people owned a piece of the company, it would mean a lot to them, that, they're part of it. And hopefully at some stage that we were thinking that if we ever got acquired, these people would win as well. Because as you guys know as well, as everybody knows that, I think to make a bit of money in this country is tough because the tax and everything is so high. And, so one of the ways of making a bit of money or a bit of F-off money is doing a startup or having your own business, because that gives you more control and more power. Now it's tough, but it means you have that opportunity, yourself to do it. So if you join a startup or you do your own startup, having shares as your options is like, some people don't believe in, like they think the shares are blood, but I think, in the company, if you ever do a startup, ever join a startup, I would be saying, people should have, especially the startup people who come in early, who take that risk, should have the opportunity for getting shares. It's just so important because they got to win as well. It's tough. I mean, doing a startup and having it down there at the bottom, having fun. It's not easy to have fun when you're bootstrap, because you're really focused on sales very heavily, and selling is tough. So we, after the year of the program, and we had some sales, Enterprise Ireland were very anxious that they would get some companies started up. And basically, because we're in a BMW region, as you guys are, Ball and Midlands West at the time, so it wasn't matching funding, they would give you more. So the numbers were something like, if we could come up with 100 or 120,000, I think was between us, and they would invest maybe 200, nearly twice. So it would mean that we would have 300,000 roughly, and we'd have the whole company ourselves. When Brosnan can only take up to 10% of the company, no matter how much they put in grants or anything over the period of time of the lifetime of the company. So they are a really good investor to have. and they will help you get sales as well. And so we got together with the money. So it means that if you invest in your own company, first of all, you get the tax that you paid in that money back. And then you pay yourself, you pay yourselves with that money as well. So it's, if you come up with some money, it's a good option, especially if Brosnan will come in the back of it and give you more again. So that means you're going to have another 2 years before you're going to have to looking out for an investment. Then after 2 years, we're making progress, and we had some VCs offered us money, and like it was something like, say, $500,000, and I was ready to sign. I said, imagine having $500,000 in the bank and taking all that pressure off of sales and everything. And I had a friend of mine I played football with, and he was a financial guy, and he came along to one of the meetings, and he said, he's looking for too much of the company. They are looking for too much of the company. And be aware, John, as well, that these guys will be on your board. You're going to have to meet with them every quarter. So I suppose reluctant at the time, we didn't do it for me, because I was just having that cash was very appealing to me. But anyway, we went around to family and friends, and we did a BES, which is like they invest money in the company, say up to 30 grand, and they get half it back in tax. And I think we did, you can do that round then, around, usually done there around the end of the year in December. And so we raised like some sort of €1 million under BES through contacts. Now, on the downside of that, it means that they all get shares in the company. All those guys who invested got shares, full shares. That's the way we did it. Because I knew there were my brothers and my family down in Kerry invested. And I wanted so that if we ever won, if we were lucky enough to sell the company, that these guys would benefit too. But it means we ended up with a lot of shareholders, over 30. And some people I didn't know. So that's the downside of it. We had too many shareholders. And during the period of the company as well, the bust came. And some of those guys in the property market, they had loads of money and we raised the money. And then they were stuck and they wanted their money back. So we didn't have the cash to give them the money back. So that's the downside of it. A lot of shareholders can be a lot of pain, can be more pain, because there's always going to be one or two who are stuck for cash, and rightly so expect their money back as well. So, but with the money we invested in sales, we started getting a sales guy. We got a sales guy that I had worked with before in the UK, luckily enough. And he had a Rolodex of contacts, and he helped us sell. And I know that kept us going. We'll talk about that in a second. Just about the product very quickly, guys, so our space, our like in here, looking at traffic and looking at networks and looking at security, we had a product called Languardian, which analyzed traffic on the network and looked for bad stuff, looked for worms, or looked for it was built on Snark, which you guys probably are aware of, an intrusion detection system, open source. And all we did initially was we took the traffic and the Snark, the open source product, because it was an easy way to develop something pretty quick, and we put a nice GUI on it. That's how we got a product out. We were shipping appliances on the road. I was going on the road with a box, plugging into my laptop with a crossover cable, giving demos. Then we shipped the box, so we wanted to try it out. But over time, we learned from some other companies, and we went software only, download and try, put it on VMware and so on. And we started embellishing our traffic analysis engine so that normal people could understand what's going on in their network. We thought that, like even with IDSs, you weren't getting the full visibility from traffic. So we wrote our own engine over the years, and that's why we were required. But we stuck, over 15 years, we stuck with traffic analysis. That's all we did. Even though we were tempted to do logs or other stuff to get sales, we didn't do it. We had a very good support team with 2 or 3 guys and girls on support, looking after customers very well. With the download, we got a lot of scale. I talk about, like, the US Navy downloaded the software because they couldn't get it anywhere else years ago, and they bought. And like people like City Holding Bank in the States, we didn't have to go on site. They downloaded the software. We did a WebEx with them or a Zoom, installed it with them, let them have it for a month, and they came back and made the decision. So that's how we got a lot of our customers. It was low touch, no more going on site and stuff like that years ago. But we stuck with that niche. we stuck with it. I'm going to stop there for a second in case there's any questions. Is that okay so far, guys? Everybody? So we're not boring you, right? So I did everything to try and sell. You know, I used to go like into Brosnan to these trade missions, and I'd go to those, and then I'd try and arrange my own meetings, do cold calls, ring up. We started out universities because they had big networks and they had a lack of visibility, and there was a lot going on. And we found that if we installed the box, we nearly always found something bad, and that would help close the deal, you know. But you've probably all seen that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. And I used to go around with a cardboard box with a mini laptop in it, a mini server, a PC, sorry. And on my bag, I used to carry a laptop. I'd go on site, I'd plug in the crossover cable and give a demo and walk away and hopefully get an agreement from them to do a trial, 30-day trial free. Like I remember doing this in Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, and my arm would be hanging off me. And I went in, I did a demo, and then in the middle of the demo, the hard disk on the laptop on the PC crashed. And like, but there was a lady and two other guys, and they had pity for me, I'd say, and they agreed to do the trial, and we got the deal. But it was tough, you know. It was like sales is tough, but when you're starting up your company, you're going to be involved in it yourself at the start. So, you know, our kind of policy was, if we couldn't sell this locally in Ireland, what was the point of going to the UK or the US? And with some contacts I had from Digital and HP and other people, those contacts would give me, like, county councils were a good starting ground. We installed it in the county council, and they had a very big network. And I went down, I installed it, and I was running the reports on the system, and there was nothing. And I was ringing the guys in the office, and I spent 3 days down the county council having coffee and hanging out with the guys, while our engineers were back in the office trying to debug and fix the bugs in the system. And we eventually fixed it. Because the network was so big, we could simulate that network, and we never tested on a big network, and the system wasn't ready. But because we did it with a friendly site, not an enterprise or somebody, we got away with it. So start with somebody that you know are friendly or local, or somebody that won't mind if things aren't perfect. Because with some of the bigger guys, they expect things to be perfect, and you know, you get one chance to make a good first impression, and if you don't get it right, they'll kick you out. So I went to everything. I went to everything, networking. I went to events. I went to shows, and with all of that stuff, we eventually started getting sales. Started through a digital contact. I started in the US multinational, and we started getting selling in the state. Like, security is a huge issue at the moment, and because it was really bad then, like you see the colleges at the moment, there's issues. Even still, like, you know, with some of the colleges, it's so hard to see what's going on. One of the best things we did was hire the guy Dudley in the UK, and he had a Rolodex of customers we already sold that. And sorry, I think Gary, you can just scram. So he had a customer Rolodex that he already sold to, like, Football Association in the UK, and he didn't need marketing from us or contacts from us because we didn't have them. And we were finding it very hard to get them. So he, over a period of 2.5 to 3 years, kept calling the people he already sold to with another product. Like, a lot of those names on that screen, Honda, the Football Association, Wembley Stadium, ANZ Bank, they're all his old customers. And he's said 3 years, and he spent 3 years with us. And what we were doing, we were selling the product, and say the average selling price is around 35,000, 45,000. Then every year we're charging support and maintenance of 22%. And that was like money in the bank if you looked after the customer. And it's always easier, you know, to sell to an existing customer rather than get a new one. So we started with the customers we had, and like Paddy Power was our biggest customer, for example, and they spent maybe 8 years with us, so we got millions off them, and they kept renewing every year because security is such a big deal. And that's an interesting story too about a guy I met. But we started building up cash, and actually we started investing in marketing, but we really couldn't scale it. Like, we ended up with about 250 customers. We never got above that at our peak. But we were happy because we cashed in the bank. We kept developing the product, we had done some integrations, and I was still in the back of our head, well, maybe we could sell this, because we thought we were in a pretty tight space. Though, and it was great that we had a mix of very good names as well, because you need customers give you kind of validation and they give you confidence. And, when you can put up logos like that, sales is the lifeblood of the company. It was great, It was great that when a few people came to acquire us, we could say, listen, we have $1 million cash in the bank. We don't have to sell. We're not stuck for money. Because that's where you don't want to be. You don't want to be stuck with a VC or somebody saying, oh, you guys are going down the drain. You have to take this money, and they'll take most of the company. That's what we never want. We nearly came to that stage at one stage when the bus came and we were stuck, and we took a bit more investment and stuff, but we were like, we did lay off some people, do pay cuts, and I swore that would never happen again. I didn't want that to happen. But the recurring revenue, that money every year from existing customers at 22%, it's fantastic. So that's your model, your sales model. We looked for a few integrations with bigger companies and said, could we use their integration? Could we use their message? And like one of those companies was SolarWinds, for example, and we integrated with them, and they were well known. So it meant that we ring up somebody and said, do you have SolarWinds? We have an integration. It works very well with that, if you're interested. And then I'd say maybe 8 years ago, we decided maybe we could sell the company. Maybe the investors wanted their money back. And I suppose we were at it 10 years at that stage, and it was tough going, and like, even though we had some cash and we were doing okay, it was still like every quarter they're trying to get the sales in, and it was there was a fair bit of stress on it. That guy Dudley, for example, after 3 years, the sales guy in the UK, he came in and said, I'm leaving. And I said, why? He said, I have no more contacts left, and you're not giving me any. So we had no marketing machine. We tried to do it a few times. We were getting no inbound, really few leads for him. And there's only so many contacts he had. And he just left and went off to another company. But we still had the customers he got for us, which was, we looked after them, and that was critical. So we started getting inbound requests like this one. That was in 2016. And for this crowd, like, for example, we did a few calls, and you get all excited. It's saying, geez, like, maybe we can sell this and buy a new car or whatever. And this one came to nothing. Like, went down for about 6 months and took up a lot of time, and probably more importantly, a lot of headspace as well. You're there thinking about this and getting excited. And we eventually, with one of our partners, they invited me to the States to give a presentation to our management team. And that was in, say, November of 2016. And I remember we had a strategy meeting with our board in January, and they were saying, those guys never got back to you. What's this company worth? Is anybody interested? So we approached a lot of companies and said, would you be interested in buying us through a broker? That didn't work. This company I presented to in November didn't get back to us. And I said, well, give them time. But they did get back to us about 3 weeks later in February. And they said, we want to buy the company. So we did some negotiation and we agreed a good price. So then not this crowd, no, it was an American company, a pretty well-known company. I'll come back to this one in a sec. But anyway, long story short, it cost us, I think, maybe 180,000 legal fees. A week before the signing date, they pulled the deal. The American company pulled out. And they said they were going to do it themselves. It was one of the toughest times. I remember that last call. It was like, because we had visions of lots of things we were going to do with the money. And we told the shareholders that they were getting money and their money back and more. And it stopped. I suppose anyway, we tried to get them back, and they weren't interested. And they released their own product, a version of what we did, and it failed. But they never got interested again. And the company is a very well known company, went through a lot recently as well. But it took us, I suppose, 2 or 3 years to get over it. And we didn't know if we'd ever sell the company after that, to be honest. But then, as you see there, on the 5th of December 2018, this guy, Sam Adams, who's my boss now, actually, sent in this partner request form, and which is an inquiry saying, like, basically, can we, become a partner and resell your software? Well, Rapid7 are a well-known company based in Boston, multinational. You probably know them, and so they basically are a security and detection response company. So they use logs. They're like a SIM. They use logs. You're very familiar with SIMs at this stage, and they didn't have any traffic source. And I know this company. I'd actually tried to get them interested years ago, and it didn't happen. And I said, this is interesting, to our CTO. So we did a demo with Sam the following week on Zoom, a week before, 2 weeks before Christmas. And it was scheduled for an hour. Make sure my time is okay, guys. And it went on for an hour and a half. And Morgan Doyle, our CTO, gave the demo, and myself, the two of us did the call on Zoom. And it was like, I could feel like your man asking all these questions. And Sam, and he was very friendly. And he said, at the end of the call, it went on for an hour and a half. He said, this is more important, let's keep going. But at the end of the call, he said, it's the end of our year. We're very busy trying to close deals. We'll get back to you in January. I said, fine, we're busy too. And off we went. Following Tuesday, I got an email from him saying, our plans have changed. Some meetings got cancelled. Could we talk tomorrow? Could we have another call? And I said, wait an hour or two. And I responded and said, yes, no problem. On the call the following day was Sam, myself, and this guy, Conan, who was the head of M&A. He was a mergers and acquisitions guy. He's the guy who bought companies. So then I started to get a bit excited. And in the middle of the call, Conan said, hey, John, instead of doing a partnership, would you be interested if we bought a company in an acquisition? And I was there, like, because he couldn't see my face, and I was there, you bet I would, but I said nothing for about 2 minutes and said, well, it depends on the price and all this usual stuff. I said, we have cash, we have options, we're starting to stay in the States. Anyway, so I said, yes, of course, that we would be. And he said, we've been looking for a company in this space for a while. And you guys seem like a good fit, but it's very early days. So they came to Dublin. They had an office in Dublin. They had acquired an Irish company, Log Entries, 2 years before that, an office on Pierce Street. And on January the 7th, all their management team, their VPs, came to Dublin. We presented to them. They got a minibus to Galway. They wanted to see the office and make sure we were a real company. And we were based in the GTC in Merview, and they came in. And that went on. They were sound. They were like way different to the first crowd that approached us. And we got, like, I never thought that we would get a deal like we got the first time offer, but we got this deal, and it was a better deal for lots of reasons. Got more money, a better company to work with. We were very lucky. So then on April the 2nd, they acquired us. They took 4 or 5 months of stuff, a lot of stress, but and the deal closed, and we had a party down the Huntsman first, and then we went into town. We drank for about a month. So it was a great relief. This was the day, the email, I remember this, like we did all the signing on the Monday morning, and the deal closed on the 2nd. So this is the email that you want to see, like that's, the money's in your account. And I don't know, it was a funny feeling, actually, to be honest. It was obviously a massive relief that all the shareholders deserved and got their money back. We did very well out of the deal. I used to be at meetings like this before, and I'd only be pissing people off like that. I used to be sitting down running my own company, listening to people talking about how they sold their company, and I was thinking, Jesus, damn it, do you realize how tough it is? Like, you bastard, like, but it was worth it. If you get through it and you start it, and the satisfaction you get from it, and obviously the financial reward you get from it, it's worth the shot, lads. One of the reasons for this, wanted to do this presentation, is so that it's always in the back of your heads, because as you talk to people, as you see stuff, you'll get ideas, and you'll say, and there's no doubt about it, you have to be a bit of a chancer, and you have to take there's chances in you. You have to take chances in your life. They'll go by, and sometimes you take them, sometimes you won't. And this is worth thinking about always, I think, because there's so many pluses to it. You're your own boss, you always know what's going on, you can move, you control, you have work with your friends, and you have a chance of making serious money. It's definitely worth a shot. I would say, and this is just a quick, I have 2 slides left, maybe let you know. So our revenue, like, we had money in the bank at the time. We were like, our revenue was about 2 million or something. And as you know, evaluations of companies sometimes based on multiples of revenue. And my policy was with them and said, listen, we're not, like, we have plenty of cash, but we're not scaling. We have to invest in, we're just investing in our technology. If you're buying this company, you're buying the technology and you're buying the team. And they agreed. So they didn't take our valuation. So it's one way of doing it. Companies are bought because they're making loads of money. Our companies are bought because they have IP and tech that the other company wants. And then if you're in either state, like, it's very hard. Like, I'm not a sales guy. We're not sales guys by background. We're engineers. So we said, we focus on what we're good at, develop the IP, the technology, make some sales, make sure we're making a profit, make sure we have, people who are saying we like the product, but we didn't want to go down the VC route and become a big company. It's just our personal preference. Maybe some people do, and that's fine. And, this is one way of doing it. A small team, techies, develop a piece of technology that maybe integrates with some other people, have it validated by some sales, and sell the tech in the team. You don't need a whole pile of funding to do that. But like, after going through it the second time, we knew we told nobody unless we had to. We didn't tell the shareholders at the end until we knew we had the deal done. We kept it over. We only took a few people on staff until we had to. Like, the last time, the other company interviewed all the people, see if they give them jobs before the deal was closed, and then the deal didn't close, and people left. It was a disaster. We managed it wrong. So this time we really kept it low key and quiet and didn't get too excited. And because we met the guys and we had been out for dinner with them and been drinking with them, it felt right. It's like when you're hiring somebody, a salesperson, which is one of the hardest things in the world to do, I think, unless you know him or her. Like, try and hang out with them beforehand. Go on a sales call with them, or do something. Or if there's any salespeople you work with in a different company selling a different product. I mean, we made massive mistakes hiring salespeople in the States and in the UK, and I'd spend time with them. And after 3 or 4 months, there was no sales brought in. I don't know what the advice is, but it's really, hiring friends of friends into a company. We did that too, and that didn't work out. Unless you've worked with somebody, but if you haven't, you have to be extremely careful. But we had met these people, and you get on with them, and it felt right in the gut. And the other thing, I suppose, we had gone out before and tried to sell the company, going out to companies and say, "Will you buy us?" We had done that, and we had a bit of interest, but not much. But this crowd came to us, and I kind of always wanted that. Somebody comes to you and says, "I really want to buy your car. I love it. Whereas you're there, please buy my car, please buy my car." It gives you a bit more leverage, I thought. But we were always honest with them as well. This time we told them everything. We people abroad. We had a guy, one of our key guys in Korea. We told them where he was, and they didn't mind. That's like, we got to know. Jesus. Next time, if there was a next time, I'm with Rapid7 now. I'm with the company that acquired us. I'm the head of the Galway office at the moment, and they're a good company to work for. I've been up to Boston with them. They're headquartered in Boston. They're doing very well in security space there and down to the NASDAQ. And would I go and do another startup? Sometimes I say I would, sometimes I won't, because it's just I suppose the further I go, I think I definitely would be interested anyway. But next time, if I was doing it again, all the contracts with people, if you have a company, your own startup, like your employee contracts, these people, when they're buying the company, go through everything. Every contract you have with anybody, you got to have them. With your partners, with your staff, anything. Did they sign like copyright on all your code? Do they have full ownership of your software? Any contractors you use, anything. All of this has to be perfect. These guys, and the last company tried to penalize us because they said we didn't have the right contracts with our partners. You have to have this stuff right. And you probably need to get advice on it. Otherwise, going back retrospectively and trying to fix this and going to people who had left and say, will you sign this contract? And I forgot to get you to sign before you left. It was, I would have smaller number of shareholders. We had too many. I would, like the legals, anything. I would definitely be way more careful about hiring salespeople or any people I didn't know. Would I go to the US and try and sell there sooner? Maybe. It's interesting how this happened, actually, this deal. The last thing I'll say is that we tried a lot of things, and some of you are probably familiar with Gartner, who are this analyst firm in the States. So they were coming to us and they'd say, well, we'd help you guys get known in the States and we'll give you advice. And it will cost you, I think it was $55,000 a year. And I was thinking, for a client, $55,000 is a lot of money, and I like my money. So I said, no. And then Forrester came to us. And Forrester were about half the price. Not as big as Gartner. And I suppose that both of them I was more worried about, because we were so small and we didn't have a lot of people in our company and a lot of people to work with this crowd. Would we actually use them at all? Would we get value from it? But anyway, cut a long story short, we signed with Forrester. And basically you got a number of calls with them and they gave you advice. They tried to help get you sales. And when I was in the States, and I spent a lot of time in the States for the last few years before we sold, meeting customers and partners and so on, there was one of their analysts, a guy called Joseph, who was based in San Francisco. And I went out, I used to meet him and we'd go for a beer or have breakfast or coffee. But did we get any new business from this crowd with this crowd's help? No. After 2 years, we didn't. So we'd spent maybe 60 grand, and looking at our sales, there was no deal that we could point to that these guys helped us. So when they came to renew for the third year, I had a discussion with the Forrester and I said, we're not going to do it. And Forrester were also a client of Rapid7. And Sam had gone to Forrester, Sam Adams, my boss now, and said, we want to buy a company in this space. And we were finding it hard to find one, that's the right size and the right technology. And Joseph, and this happened, I think, in San Francisco, the guy I had been hanging out with, he said, go talk to John Brosnan in Netfort in Galway. And that's how they found out who we were in our contact. That we were looking to them to sell product. And these guys were responsible for helping sell the company at the end of the day, which was interesting. Because they told other people in the States about us who never heard about us before. Because, we were unknown in the States, we're too small. So it's interesting, I think. But we never gave up. We kept at it. Because, we're all pretty dogged. We looked after our customers, we had a good customer base, and we had plenty of cash, and we had options at the end. That was great. Looking back on it, I wish I'd taken more pictures of the last. They always say to you, like, enjoy the trip, enjoy the journey. But, 15 years of, I was pretty house dog at times, and there was lots of ups and downs. It's kind of hard to enjoy it most of the time, I found anyway. But it's very satisfying. So. I hope you learned something out of that, and that's the end of it, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Speak up there, and I took one when you're young time anyway, so which is great. that okay, guys? Everybody? Can't see any questions there anyway. I don't. I'll do a stop share and see if I can
I was going to
see.
say, John, very interesting. What are you working on next?
I mean, at the moment, I'm working in Rapid7. And what we've done is one of the reasons that obviously they bought us was to integrate our software into their bigger product. They have a platform, and our software at Langardian has been integrated in, and we're just finishing that at the moment. So with it's going well, and I'm happy enough with that at the moment. I mean, if I was doing a startup, it definitely would be in the security space, and I have a few ideas. But again, I'm enjoying kind of back in the multinational world a bit of business, the change. So. I'll be here a while, I'd say. I'd see, and especially the last 2 years have been, I think, a tough 2 years for anybody. And it's been like, as we're working from home still, we're supposed to be back in the office in Galway in January, they're talking. So, and I haven't met, obviously, any guys in America for a while, all my bosses and stuff like that. But the Rapid7 are a good company to work for. I'm enjoying it at the moment.
There's probably more gaps in the market back then. What do you see any openings now with COVID and all the activities and people working from home and everything? It's kind of changing a little bit of a ground change. Do you see any gaps in the market currently?
I would say that, like, all the remote working around security and everything, there's it's still a huge, it's probably even a big issue. But I think you make a few interesting points there. I think that I think for us now, for example, with me anyway, over the years, like a lot of my selling was, I had met the people, even not all the time though, and I spent a lot of time with them, like in meetings and face to face, and not being able to do that would have made it a lot tougher for us now, I think, for Netfort, because a lot of I'm not too sure how we would have found it. I think we would have struggled over the last few years, as a small company for back, like all the people, all our staff working from home, and not being able to see our customers and look after them, And I think there's so many bigger companies now that are, they're so powerful and owning the marketplace, and trying to compete with them is getting harder, I think. But there definitely are opportunities if listen to customers. And those bigger companies, they're not perfect either, as you know.
Yep.
The software is not perfect. They don't look after people that well. There are opportunities there for sure. I mean, I would be looking at opportunities really with a niche, know their niche, stick with it. And you're thinking, and then you're looking around and say, who could buy this? Who would integrate this in their software? What bigger company would pay for this? That's the way I would do it, that way for sure. And I would really develop the tech along those routes. I would just do enough sales to keep going and to validate the product. Myself, I was doing it again that way. And I would invest in the technology. But I think with the whole home working, and people be going back into the office again next year, and to be more hybrid, and to be working from home and working in the office and moving around, I think there are definitely opportunities out there.
Sounds right. Thanks, John.
No problem at all.
Hey, John, I've seen some U.S. Government agencies in there. I don't know if it's U.S. military. How did that work with you guys being based out of Ireland? Were you able to get clearance and all that kind of thing? Because usually it's only U.S. citizens and U.S. companies that they work with. No?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing. So we hit a traffic analysis engine, and we sold it to the Treasury in London, and they were using Windows SMB file shares. So we could show somebody an IP address and the username of somebody downloading a file and put it on a laptop, the size of the file, the date and time. And the guy came along to me and said, that's not enough. He said, I want to see the file name and the folder name. And this is like 10 years ago or more. So it meant that we could take the SMB protocol, which is a pretty complex protocol. We could do some reassembly of the protocol in real time. We'd pick out that detail from the traffic and we'd store it in our system. And nobody had done this, believe it or not, at the time, because the protocol was so complex. And we did it. And can you imagine the US Navy when they approached us and they said, can you do this? Because they saw on our website when they did a search that we could do it. And they had these massive file shares that people are pulling, as you know, they're trying to track this data, pulling the data off them all the time. I said, we only want it for this one reason. And we were the only company that could do it at the time that they found. And I said, and we were dealing with a guy in Dahlgren. He was at US Naval Base. The guy was in the submarine base in Dahlgren. I was on site there. I think there was 7,000 people on site. It was their own airport and everything. So to get on the base, we had to get like massive clearance, especially when they found out we weren't citizens. But we got away with it because they could get the software nowhere else. With the US Navy. Then the Army became interested and they read a lot more, US Army did, and a lot more red tape, and they said no. Even though they couldn't get it anywhere else because we were an Irish company and we didn't have all the certifications, they wouldn't buy it. So, you know, the Treasury bought it, they didn't mind, US Department of Treasury. No, these days, that was like, so that's 7 or 8 years ago. It's probably all different now. There's probably no way we could sell it, you know, to be honest. But I don't know. I mean, we could not afford to do all the certifications at the time. And I don't know if I would do it now even. I don't know if even Rapid 7 have a lot of the stuff that they need, you know, to sell to, you know, those guys. But that's how it happened. The last thing I'll say actually is we met 2 or 3 people I met a guy in college on one site one day, and he was walking through the college in NUIG, and he was looking for a coffee shop, and his wife was from Leitrim. And I said, I'm going there to Friars, and I took him there with me. And it turned out he was a consultant for Tyco, security consultant. I told him what we did. And he said, I think Tyco would be interested. And Tyco are massive, based in Princeton in New Jersey. So that night he had me on a call with the CIO of Tyco. 3 weeks later, we were over in Newark, and we got the train to Princeton, myself and an engineer. And we gave a presentation and we installed the box in Tyco. And the man came out to me, he was at the meeting, the guy I met in Galway. And he said, you know they're going to buy this, don't you? And I was there, I didn't know that. I was afraid that, you know, they were going to kick us out. 6 weeks later, they said they were buying it, and we got a contract for our initial purchase was $175,000. Biggest deal we ever got at the time, first deal. We kept them and they bought more. I don't know, did we get it? Over the time, we got over $1 million off them. Then Dave, that guy that I met, who actually we dealt with in Tyco, the engineer, rang me, said, I'm leaving. He went to McGraw-Hill Financial. He was there 1 week, and he called me. He said, I want the system installed here. How fast can you do it? So through that guy, and we sold to McGraw-Hill, we got another $1 million or $2 million. I'd say this one guy, and every time I used to fly to the States, I'd stop in Newark, get the train to Princeton, meet him, and go for lunch with him. So that's wouldn't have happened over the last year or so. But because I kept in touch with this guy and developed a relationship with him, we got 2 or 3 million off him. You know, that's not the right way of saying it, but that's the way, if you look after people and they move around, you know, don't forget that. Somebody says, I'm leaving, and you say, damn it, who's going to look after the system? That's also a big opportunity. The same thing happened with Paddy Power in O2. The guy left O2, he went to Full Tilt Poker, he went to Paddy Power. One guy that I developed a relationship with, we looked after very well, and we got, I don't know, millions after. That's all you need. You don't need that many of those people. All right, guys, I've taken up a bit of time, I guess. If you feel free to reach out to me anytime, guys. If you need anything, by the way, anybody, guys and girls, anybody, just I'm on LinkedIn, and look me up and hook in with me.